There's been zero press interest in what was going on with the military talking to the House Speaker about how the president's constitutional role is supposed to be handled as commander-in-chief. So Judicial Watch asked the Pentagon for records about that call, and specifically on the call, she boasted about this call, so it's not secret, because she boasted about it to her Democratic allies. Hey, you remember President Trump was impeached, sham impeachment again, just 2 minutes ago, practically speaking? Oh, but we're supposed to forget that. Our nation's capital is still under military occupation. There's a fence around the nation's capital, excuse me, the U.S. Capitol. It's still there. I drove by it yesterday. I was down at the office yesterday. Razor wire as far as the eye can see. Miles of fence and razor wire. As I said in my CPAC speech, which if you haven't seen it, you should see it because it's probably the best speech you'll see this year. If you want to know how the left thinks about the First Amendment, look at the 3 miles plus of fencing with razor wire around the U.S. Capitol. And all that's part of the sham impeachment show. And so Judicial Watch is investigating that sham impeachment show. Judicial Watch is investigating and suing for information, for instance, about the riot. We want the emails and video from the Pelosi Congress. We're in court right now against her, or at least the Congress, specifically the U.S. Capitol Police, which is a creature of Congress. We still don't have basic information about that riot. I mean, there was an American citizen shot and killed by a policeman. And we don't know who the policeman was. Are there videos of it? Where's the report on how that happened? I mean, basic information like that. Another police officer passed away. It's, the police misled the American people by suggesting he passed away as a direct result of being hit on the head. And in fact, that didn't happen. And so that was a lie or disinformation, to use the phrase the left likes. Again, still no information about the nature of how he died and what caused his death. Where are the videos of are there any videos? That's what we're asking for. And similarly, Nancy Pelosi, who hates President Trump, I think it's fair to say, around and after the riot, engaged in efforts to destroy our constitutional system, in my view. She tried to extort Vice President Pence and the Trump cabinet into invoking the 25th Amendment, saying, well, we'll impeach him if you don't invoke the 25th Amendment, which in fact she did. So it wasn't an idle threat. The 25th Amendment isn't designed to take out a president you don't like just because of the way he's behaving and such. It's designed to remove a president who's unable to perform his duties because of, physical or mental capacity issues. So she is pushing that. And at the same time, she called the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on January 8th in an obvious attempt to interfere with the president's role as commander-in-chief and start pushing the issue of removing his ability to launch nuclear weapons. I mean, A, it was just a silly concern, but B, she's the Speaker of the House and she has no business doing that. Wall Street Journal called it the Pelosi coup. But all that happened, right? And there's been zero press interest in what was going on with the military talking to the House Speaker about how the president's constitutional role is supposed to be handled as commander-in-chief. So Judicial Watch asked the Pentagon for records about that call. and specifically on the call, she boasted about this call, so it's not secret, because she boasted about it to her Democratic allies. She related her discussion in a letter to colleagues. This morning, this morning being January 8th, I spoke to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, to discuss available precautions for preventing an unstable president from initiating military hostilities or accessing the launch codes and ordering a nuclear strike. The situation of this unhinged president could not be more dangerous, and we must do everything that we can to protect the American people from his unbalanced assault on our country and our democracy. Well, frankly, that whole phone call sounds like it's the result of unbalanced activity by the speaker. It undermines the Constitution and undermines the separation of powers. What does the separation of powers mean? It's the idea that Congress does what Congress does under the Constitution, and they have certain powers that can't be infringed upon improperly. Same for the president. The president's commander-in-chief. So we asked for any and all records concerning or relating to the telephone call between House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and General Mark Milley on or about January 8th, 2021. This request includes, but is not limited to, any and all transcripts, recordings, and or summaries of the call, as well as any other records produced in preparation for, during, and or pursuant to the call. So how was that call handled? Was there a recording of it? And any other communications she's had with him since November 1st, 2020. And this is the 25th Amendment discussion from that outrageous memo she sent to her Democratic allies, her colleagues. As you know, there is growing momentum around the invocation of the 25th Amendment, which would allow the vice president and majority of the cabinet to remove the president for his incitement of the insurrection and the danger he still poses. Yesterday, Leader Schumer and I placed a call with Vice President Pence, and we still hope to hear from him as soon as possible with a positive answer about whether he and the cabinet will honor their oath to the Constitution and the American people. Well, thankfully, Vice President Pence and his cabinet did honor their oath to the Constitution and the American people by essentially telling Schumer and Pelosi to go jump in a lake. They weren't going to abuse the powers entrusted to them under the Constitution to overturn the Constitution and the will of the people by removing the president under the 25th Amendment improperly. And of course, this isn't the first time the left has tried to use the 25th Amendment to remove Trump. They did it through the Justice Department and the FBI, where they were deep staters and never Trumpers there. Evidently didn't like, we got the documents. Remember Rod Rosenstein and Andrew McCabe talked about invoking the 25th Amendment because they deposed the president. I mean, you think, this is what I love about the left. And I say love in the negative sense of the word. They say they're concerned about your right to vote and the voting rights of Americans, yet they are more than willing to overturn the voting rights of every American who participated in the 2016 election by saying it doesn't matter what you do on election day. You can pretend that your vote counts, either for or against a politician, because this isn't just about Trump voters. This is about every voter. They're telling us that what voters do doesn't matter, and that if we want, we will overturn the election process improperly and unconstitutionally for political purposes. That's an attack on the right to vote. And I think it's more than a little bit interesting that the Pentagon can't give us documents like we've been asking for here, or hasn't given us documents like we've been asking for about the attack on Trump that Pelosi was pursuing with the Pentagon. This is the corruption. Now, the media is completely in bed with Biden and the left, so they have zero interest in doing any significant investigative work in this regard. They're doing it. I'm not aware of it. So it's going to be up to Judicial Watch to do, as I always say, the basic heavy lifting, to find out what your government's up to expose government corruption, no matter who's in power. For instance, no one sued, and I don't know this for a literal fact, but I'm pretty confident, no one sued the Trump administration more than Judicial Watch. No one. And I suspect no one will sue the Biden administration more than Judicial Watch. Congress can yell. I mean, there are some Republicans who want the truth out, but they can't do it. They don't run committees. And even when they did run committees, they couldn't get the truth out. Even with an administration run by even an administration where their political party controlled it. So this is why Judicial Watch, you need, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted here by a pencil. This is why Judicial Watch deserves your support. Because we ask these questions no matter who's in power, and we hold politicians accountable no matter who they are. So we aim to find out about the sham impeachment and the abuses of power targeting President Trump and anyone who participated in our election process. Our Constitution is under assault, and we think it's important to get as much information as we can so the American people has the information necessary to draw their own conclusions about what Nancy Pelosi did, about what the Pentagon did, and then exercise their rights under the Constitution to either fix issues or do nothing. Who knows? But nothing's going to happen. We're not going to find out anything if Judicial Watch doesn't step up, which is what we're doing.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch all the latest news from Judicial Watch.